3 on April 14th, 2025. This is the Beautification and Public Arts Commission meeting. So anyway, first thing we're going to do is call to order and then roll call. So part of the court chair, I'm here. Claire Edelman Heath, present. Claire Johnson. Audrey Travelby, present. J. Michael Cruz.
The Vice Chair Cruz will be late.
Thank you. Matt McGrath.
Present.
And Michael Rulon.
Perfect timing, I'm present.
Yay, well done.
That's like to trade.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I didn't see upcoming events, so reminder to please look at flagstaff365.com for upcoming events, music, culture, art, and sciences. Downtown Connection, item 2, the Downtown Connection Center Southside Grove Installation Tour is on April 19th at about 2:30 p.m. I believe an invite has been issued. Yes. The ArtX events start on April 20th, so that is coming up this weekend. And you can get that full event schedule on artexideas.org. Final awards are on April 26th, and that is great that is on there because I was going to mention it. Vice Chair Cruz, Commissioners Edelman Heath, Rulon, and Travelby will be at the BAS table. Beautification Arts and Sciences staff will also be in attendance, and I will be at another table there as well. The VIP entry is from 5 to 6 p.m. and award ceremony starts at 6:30. The ribbon cutting, which is item 5 for the multicultural ribbon at a County Park sculpture exhibition. The second year we've done this. It's on May 19th at 11 a.m. I'm really looking forward to that. Item D, do we have any public participation today?
I did not get a request.
Awesome. And then item E, approval of minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to review the February minutes? And does anyone want to make a motion to approve them?
No motion.
Second? Cool. Is there any discussion at all? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone
Aye.
against? And then item F, announcements. Staff.
The Milton Underpass Survey is now live on Connect Flagstaff. We are seeking input from the community on potential themes in relation to the project and how these themes might resonate or engage residents or visitors to Flagstaff. And we're also looking for feedback on potential project materials and design ideas. So all of the information gathered through this survey will guide the final design. And it will be available through May 4th.
And these items will be on the BPAC agenda on May 12th. And, as you've gotten the information about having the site tour, which we're all excited about, obviously the installation of the Southside Grove is happening this week. It's very exciting. We had 3 telescope tree trunks will be going in tomorrow, and then they're going to decorate it with all the clusters, and then on Wednesday, they're going to put in a timetable, and that stone came out just beautiful, by the way. And then on Thursday, the last 3 trunks will go in, and then they'll be adding the star clusters on the end of the branches. So just periodically throughout the week. And then, of course, if you can, come to the site tour on Thursday.
Binders wear proper footwear and long pants. Okay.
So, and also, the city logo discussion at council. I want to keep you aware of what was presented at council. As you know, BPAC was not heavily involved in this. We did not, this was assigned to this city clerk's office. And Heidi Hansen came up with a wonderful idea to save money to use the NAU design class in order to save on costs. They had a process, and Vice Chair Cruz participated in it. I know there were some issues about meeting times. But when it went to council with their result, if you read the minutes, you could see that council didn't think there was enough public participation in order to go forward, so they tabled the item. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I don't know if we'll be asked to be more involved in the future, but I just, wanted to let you know how that came out.
And then item 4.
We are going to take item H1 and H2 so that our visitors who are presenting today can leave earlier if they wish. And then we'll go back into sequence.
Great. I do not have any announcements, because I was waiting to talk about the bylaw awards. And then, Vice Chair Cruz was not here, so do any of the other commissioners have announcements? And I know our council liaison is not here today, so.
Right, she's at the city county meeting. Yes.
So, I didn't see her earlier today. So item G, action items.
No, we're gonna go H1.
Oh yeah, sorry, H1 out of order. Right, sorry, the sequence confused me. So we'll do item H out of order. H1.
Hey, Julie, the presenter seat is up here. You can stand if you wish.
I'll stand. Hi, nice to see you all. I'm Julie Comnick, Interim Executive Director with Creative Flagstaff. Thank you for the opportunity to present a little early. It means I didn't get 5 seconds to think about it, but here we go. So I'm presenting today primarily on the outcomes of the Arts and Science Projects grants, but I'm also including at the end a summary of the upcoming ArtX project. So hopefully that part of that taps into what we were going to be talking about. So just to start off with, Creative Flagstaff greatly appreciates and honors the opportunity to partner with the City of Flagstaff and BPAC in part of our mission is fostering creative opportunity. And one of the ways we do that, I'm pointing at something, pointing at the down button. There you go. There we go. Oops, sorry. Fancy. Yeah, so an extension of our mission is exactly with the Arts and Science grants, empowering exploration and creation. So as you all know, we work closely with the City of Flagstaff for the allocation of the BBB funds for both general operating support and project grants. So this presentation is specifically on the 2025 project grants that were awarded in the winter, and the projects are rolling out as we speak. So excitingly, we were able to award $86,800 across 16 projects. And don't worry about this, it's teeny tiny, you don't need to look at any of it. But what it does show is that we had 24 applications, and my understanding is that's a record number of project grant applications. It shows that there's an increasing need for this type of support. It also makes the competition greater, right? So, so those organizations who have received grants, ongoing for similar types of projects, they have a little more competition, and the funding has, is distributed accordingly. So what this also shows, it shows that the 16 recipients of the gray, you don't really need to worry about, but what that shows is that there were some organizations that their minimum request exceeded the amount that was available for allocation at that tier. So therefore they did not receive funding in those areas. But anyway, super exciting outcomes. What I did is take those 16 and try and figure out 5 that would fit into a succinct presentation. So I simply tried to select those that showed the span of the types of projects. I think there was a really interesting span of different types of things. So this first one, you don't need to read the text. I'll summarize it for you. The Greg Hill Fund for Music and Dementia. The idea is that they offer hour-long classes, a series of them, to support people with memory loss, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. So they talk a lot about the science, how music is integral to stimulating the brain, may help with emotional regulation, allow self-expression, and tie it all back to the arts and science. It's really fulfilling this mission. Also, the Boys and Girls Club of Flagstaff is starting a Native American Cultural Summer Arts Program this summer in 2025. So the idea is youth ages 12 to 18 will focus on local Native American art forms, cultural traditions, and the role of arts in preserving heritage and identity in that summer camp type style. Also, Lowell Observatory, I love this pairing of a project grant for one of our largest nonprofit organizations. So they proposed the Indigenous Cosmology mural. So of course, there's the brand new Marley Foundation Astronomy Discovery Center. And this project is for a mural that will be in that central staircase. There's a name for that staircase, the grand staircase. So 2 Indigenous artists have been identified to create that mural, and then that'll be accessible by all visitors to the Marley Astronomy Discovery Center. Flagstaff International Film Festival is an example of an organization that applies for and receives this grant year after year to continue their programming, award-winning programming, to really enrich arts and culture in downtown Flagstaff. And finally, I think this is the last one, the Orchestra of Northern Arizona is starting a competition for young musicians. So the idea that they get professional experience, able to work with mentors, and the competition style program that also enables free public programming for the Orchestra of Northern Arizona. Yeah. Any questions about the project grants before we move on to ArtX? Okay, great. ArtX has been spending this year soliciting applications towards a rollout of continuing projects throughout the year. Just a reminder that ArtX, the model, we decided on a biennial or every other year rotation was most sustainable towards a consolidated event style display. And in the meantime, we wanted to roll out regular demonstrations of ArtX this year with the idea of making ArtX experiences accessible by every primary location, to have a partnered location to spread out the, where you might expect to see ArtX presentations. So surprisingly, we'd identified 4 existing locations or partnering with organizations who wanted to, have an ArtX demonstration, as well as another opportunity that I'll share shortly. And we were surprised to have over 70 applications for this year. So the great thing about that means that those artists and organizations that weren't selected this year, we invited them to let us retain their applications, that we have a robust pool to start with next year. So really exciting ideas came out of this. So the 4, and it sort of turns into 5 different locations. One is the Arboretum of Flagstaff. They have some existing structures such as this, several of them. And so the panel selected 3 different artists to create new works to be displayed in these structures. So they'll be up for the whole open season, or the whole fall season of the Arboretum. An important factor is ArtX needs to be free and available to the public. The Arboretum does have free days, so those will be advertised through ArtX so people can know that they can go see them and not have a barrier of a cost or ticket price. And I think that date that you shared on the agenda, that April 20th, I think that's the beginning of the installation of that project. The opening for it, I think, is a few weeks out. So a little out of chronological order, but the Ice House, excitingly, will present with the Literacy Center a Pride Month art exhibition, which includes banned LGBTQIA+ books with artists and authors creating reimagined covers. So a way to engage arts, existing literature. It's hosted by Culture Connection at the Ice House. And I'm forgetting an important part that I can't quite see. Yes, so there's an opportunity for those artists to sell their work, retaining the full commission on that. That also includes performance elements along with that for the month of June. This, part of the idea of pulling images for these is the projects haven't happened yet. So I'm just, pulling some things that sort of reference. So the First Friday Art Walk was one of the venues that was identified for an Art X demonstration. So on May 2nd, the First Friday Art Walk will be a car-free First Friday with Aspen closed for that event to celebrate moving, biking, public transit, kids, all the things. As well as participating in the art experience that is Art Walk, but also hence this image, they're partnering with the Museum of Northern Arizona for the poetry maps, which will be read aboard mountain line buses. You can get on the bus, have some poetry readings happening on the bus. So it really is about, alternate modes of transportation other than cars. And I'm saying finally, but there's one more after it. Next to last, the ArtX free range. So this is where, we'd already partnered with several other organizations that wanted to host a ArtX demonstration, but one could also propose free range, meaning you tell us your location, you tell us your other location, and see if we can make it happen. So this is one with Willow Bend Environmental Education Center, with Nature Tales, which is a free family-friendly puppet show that travels and it brings the wonders of nature to life through storytelling and interactive fun. So that's one that they're building on a previous project to have a much more, a broader reach in the community. And then finally, also happening in June at the Phoenix Avenue Gallery is a recycled fashion show. So that's going to be a collaborative project. There were a couple artists who had similar proposals, and they actually joined together and collaborated to be able to bring this project to fruition. And I believe that's the last example. And towards that ArtX, those artists all received funding towards their projects in the range of $500 to $2,500, depending on if it was a collaboration or different types of things. So we're super excited to see this roll out and then to roll into next year. So any questions about ArtX or projects?
Julie, for ArtX, you mentioned over 70 applications. Do you know how many awards?
Awards would be for those 6 projects, but some have multiple artists engaged. Like the Arboretum has 3 different artists that each received $2,500. So it depends on the scope of the project. But yeah, so there were 6 venues, some with multiple artists in each venue.
And Lisa Cruz has his hand raised.
Oh, Commissioner Cruz?
Give a little hand.
Vice Chair Cruz?
Doesn't say he's muted. Hopefully it's not a microwave problem. Or
Maybe either.
Can somebody else try saying something, Mr.?
Sure. I think it's working for me.
Is it?
Matt.
His mic isn't
Let me
working.
text him.
Do you want to try posting your question or comment in the chat and we can read it?
Okay, was curious about the collaboration with the Lake nonprofits. Did that collab come out about organically, or did we facilitate? So the panel decided that they wanted to facilitate that invitation to those 2 artists to collaborate. So they were both given the choice, and they had some time to talk to each other and figure out if that would be a feasible collaboration. And my understanding was that the results from the panel were, as if they didn't do it, that there was another project that would have been awarded in lieu of that. Didn't make sense to separate that into 2 projects.
Okay, so, Vice Chair Cruz says, was curious about the collaboration.
She just.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry.
Yeah, so I think the idea was to try and like nurture a collaboration, but not to force it,
Okay.
Have you seen, just since this is the next year of the project, have you seen any change in the applicant base? Like, are there, and you had quite a few,
We had quite a few, yes, yep.
so.
Yep.
Stronger, or, I
Yeah.
mean, like, how would you characterize this
My-
year's applicant base?
Thank you. Excellent question. My feeling is, was strong applications, some repeat applications for projects that really worked well. A lot more application and a broader reach, like we had, actually, I think it was, Commissioner Cruz had referred someone to us who currently lives in, Texas. So there was a broader reach. I was excited because when seeing these, I was like, oh, people have heard of RDEX. They get RDEX. These are relevant projects, really exciting ideas. Like the concept, it's really hard to describe RDEX, right? That's one of the problems we're trying to work with. I think successfully, that they responded well with projects that would be really meaningful in this community, even if they were from other places. That's why I'm excited that, to invite these people who didn't necessarily get awarded this year, if it's timely for them to continue the project next year, that there's a lot of really good ideas simmering and ready to happen. Yeah, thanks for that.
That's what I was curious about.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I guess I'll stand too, since that's the theme of the night. Good afternoon. My name is Janita Lanzetta. I'm a project manager with the Capital Improvements Division. About 6 months ago, I took over as project manager for the photo booth library project, which I know had been before this commission before, but I know it's been a long time, so I'm going to run through it a little bit just to give some updates. So we have a few maps. The one on the bottom right is really tiny, but essentially it's showing that this project is located right next to the visitor center in downtown Flagstaff, so right along Route 66. We're sort of southwest of the existing building, which you can see the project limits in the upper right image. The very upper right corner is saying that that is the visitor center, and we are in that little gravel area that exists there now. So the vision on the left-hand side there is we're going to be relocating the bike racks, adding in 2 new benches, a concrete platform, and this phone booth that has been converted into a tiny library. So the phone booth itself, this was converted by local artist Jake Bacon. He has 2 outside of his house right now that have been a part of the community for several years. And this is his 3rd in a series of 10 that he's hoping to get around Flagstaff. And the idea is to promote literacy and interest in the arts within the community. So the issue with the phone booth that came to light is it can only be altered so much because it is a historical item. It's from the 1930s. And we could not change the booth to make it fully ADA accessible. So that's how the platform came about. We're adding, sidewalk ramps and the whole concrete platform so that people can maneuver around it easily. But there were some additional items that were added to the project to improve inclusivity. So one of these is we will be adding a fully ADA accessible inclusive library next to the phone booth. It'll look slightly different than that original rendered image. It'll be on 2 posts and it'll have 2 doors to open for the community members. And then there was the discussion about the books that people would have access to. So stocking them with identical books is difficult because there's a size difference. But we had talked about adding an assistance button. So visitor center staff has agreed when the assistance button is pushed on the phone booth, they will come out and help get a book if someone would like one that's inside the phone booth. And it is a give and take nature. So whatever books are stocked will be from the community or from Jake Bacon's stash. And just some updates to the schedule. We're hoping we just have to add those posts to the design and then the assistance button. We're hoping to have that done early summer. We'll go out for JOC procurement sometime during the summer or construction in August. And this is the cost estimate that we received back in June of 2024 at roughly $90,000. So We don't know if that's exactly accurate, but that's about what we're looking at right now. So, are there any questions?
All right, any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, we're back. Fine. Item G. The one, the arts agency and grant making contract.
Yeah, I'll be,
Mr. McIntyre?
thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Go to the presenter spot. Yeah, I prefer to stand up there.
Yeah, I know.
So, we're going to talk a little bit about the lead arts and culture and science agency and grant making agency contracts. Voila. Thank you for your assistance and technical aid. So the intention of the contract, this is arts and sciences funding, BBB funding, of course. We were seeking a lead arts, science and culture agency and a grant making agency to support thriving sectors. You've heard us talk about this as we worked our way through the process, so coming back now. But I believe the last time we were here was a few months ago and we talked about how we separated it into two separate pieces. This is a role that's currently performed by Creative Flagstaff. In fact, the presentation you heard, not last, but the one prior, was a part of their current final year in this role of the contract that's currently in place. Procurement standards require solicitation after contract renewals expire or anytime a new contract is created. So we did that. It's also just a good idea sometimes to see what other opportunities might be out there. So we did a request for statement of qualifications. For those of you who don't speak procurement, this is a specific type of way that we can do a solicitation. They're often done, you often will hear requests for bids. That's when we just say, how much is it going to cost? There's requests for proposals, which is like, how are you going to do this thing that we have asked you to do? A request for statement of qualifications is when we're actually looking for the person who is the most qualified, most compatible, and then we work together to create the proper scope. The idea being that you're looking for an expert to complement what you bring to the table and find a way to really do this in the most sophisticated way possible. So we did a two-part request, as I just mentioned, the lead agency, which does activities to uplift the sectors and build capacity. So capacity building throughout as an organization themselves, and then the grant making agency, which provides fair and impartial grant process for the sectors. Again, that was the board. One of the report outs for that portion of the contract is what you just heard. And we received only one response, which was Creative Flagstaff, who is the current contractee. In the review process, we had a 5-member review panel. There was a representative of the BPAC. There was the Grants and Community Engagement Director from the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. We wanted to bring somebody in from the outside community. And 3 city staff from different divisions. We had representatives from Grants and Contracts, from Planning, and from Arts and Science to give a breadth of perspective. And the results. So the proposal was well received by the reviewers. The lead arts agency was the best scoring part, the section that really resonated, and they have a strong performance history in the role. So the recommendation from staff through that process is to proceed with final scope agreement and then going to council. And what I mean by final scope agreement is, again, since this was a request for statement of qualifications and not a formal bid process, we do need to sit down and look at what they offered, talk about what we want, and really nail down what that scope is before we actually bring the contract to council. We have scheduled that contract to be presented to council on May 20th of 2025. The current budget for the projects, the lead arts agency is approximately $275,575, with $100,000 of that being for festivals or events. For instance, it can go towards RX, which you just heard a fair amount about. The grants administration is $851,000. The pass-through portion of that is $740,000, with $440,000 of that as ongoing. I want to remind you all what I presented on last time, that we're very excited to be able to provide a slight increase in the ongoing. That's been a challenge as we've mostly had one-time funding. We know that with nonprofits working in their operations, one-time funding is really helpful for projects and renovations, but it's the ongoing funding that they can count on that helps to build that kind of capacity. And then there is an administration expectation of 15%. So the action for the commission is to consider the motion to recommend Creative Flagstaff for the lead arts, culture, and science agency and the grant making agency contract. And then staff will bring that to council. Should that be a recommendation? Let's choose comments.
Anybody like to make a motion?
Were there any, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Are there any comments from the commissioner who was on the selection committee?
That was me. And,
Oh.
You know, I would say my primary comment is that it was unfortunate that there was only one application. I will say that the response from Creative Flagstaff was extremely professional. It was well written. But it did not provide us with a lot of opportunity for comparison. And so it would be nice the next time we do this, I don't know how, yeah, but just to produce a broader pool. But at the same time, you know, I recognize the geographical isolation that we have here, and that they've been doing a good job for a long time. So it's, you know, that's my primary comment.
And as the other person on the committee and also who was, you know, also, I wasn't wearing that, that's like the McIntyre was running it because I was on the committee, but with Kristen Crujito, there was extensive outreach.
Yeah.
And there was a press release and it was well advertised.
I did see that. So it's not a
So-
comment on
but,
the outreach and stuff.
You know, and I'll just say that discussion of the, you know, in the committee did focus on the fact that the lead art agency was the higher scoring. That perhaps would like to see more support, you know, as far as the capacity for the grant make, that there's a one part-time person. And those will be carried forward into the scope negotiations. And so with the procurement, so they'll carry forward that conversation, and that's already planned.
And Commissioner McGrath has his hand up.
Thanks, Carla. This is probably for Dave. Like anytime we put something out and you only get one bid, a lot of times it says something about the package that you put out and not like that maybe it's a little too specific or it's not the right project if a lot of people are not interested in it. Is there any thought, like this is kind of what Carla was saying, any thought to next time, like maybe thinking a little bit more about what exactly we're offering and what needs we have there?
Sure. I think this time, we were actually a little worried this might be the case because we have a legacy group that has been in place doing this work for a while. So we did actually, you know, you can look at the fact that we broke it into two pieces was in some ways to allow an organization that might not be able to perform both to at least compete for a portion of it. So I think we made specific changes to try to open it up a little bit. That being said, you know, we really, it would have been very curious to see somebody coming in who has grants experience from Phoenix or somewhere else trying to demonstrate a knowledge of the community. We know there are some challenges. Some of the other organizations that might have come in locally, you know, there are granting organizations locally, you know, and I believe they're made aware of this, but arts grants are slightly different. We're happy to work with the commission and certainly with procurement every time we do this to look at more ways to encourage potential participation. This one, as you mentioned, you know, unless an arts agency from out of town chose to try to move in, or an agency that was a grant maker from a different space or a nonprofit that felt like they could be a stronger lead arts and culture and science agency. That's why we broke it into two, was to make it possible for somebody to go for one half without trying to go for both. We're happy to look for any opportunities to create that, but to be honest, in the next round, but to be honest, we do want an organization that has sophistication, that understands the community, that wants to perform at a high level, has the ability to function within the space. And so without neutralizing the scope, I would be very open to ideas for how to ask for what we want while still making it open to a broader group. Does that make sense? I know I kind of rambled a little bit in there. I think what I was, to try to make that concise for 1 second, we were trying to think of ways to do exactly that without reducing what we're asking for. And I think we did what we could.
And Matt, you're speaking my language. You know, RFQ responses are very expensive to prepare. And when there is an incumbent that looks like they have a very clear understanding of the ask, oftentimes people will not respond to them because they see the incumbent and then they are just evaluating the cost of the preparation of the RFQ response. And that oftentimes is a reason for people to not apply. So that would be one of my guesses, is they see a strong incumbent.
Yep.
So, and they understand that they're not local. Anyway.
It's great feedback, and as we approach the next one, happy to take any ideas into consideration.
I'll speak for Mike since his mic is not working and mine is, but I asked the question, is this something that can be done remotely? And if so, was that stated explicitly?
I do not believe this project is one that would be as, I don't think we stated explicitly that you cannot do this remotely, but there was an expectation of an understanding of our arts, culture, and science community and the landscape within it. We're looking for an organization that understood how to work within Flagstaff, to work with Flagstaff sectors. And so I think it would be very challenging to come up with a proposal or a statement of qualifications that would lead to the committee thinking that an outside group who wasn't going to be based here would be able to bring that level of local knowledge. We're really looking for somebody who can take this community's unique sector and sectors and help them grow. And so I'm not saying other organizations wouldn't have the ability and the knowledge to develop that capacity, but they'd have to show that they were so robust in whatever place they were that they could learn the intricacies of our community very quickly. But yes, that would have been, we certainly were wondering if somebody would propose from an outside community and how that proposal would look and how that would be structured. It was not stated, I think, explicitly that you can be from out of the community, but it was certainly not prohibited.
Any other questions? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone against? It's an aye from Commissioner Cruz. Vice Chair Cruz. Cool. Thank you very much. And then item number 82, let's talk about some Route 66 utility department proposals.
Okay, so we recently had a call to artists for two APS utility cabinets on Route 66, one near 4th Street and one near Postal Boulevard. And I'm going to share with you the steps we took in generating those call to artists, forming the selection panels that evaluated the submissions. Then we'll look at the highest scoring designs with a chance for questions and discussions, and ending with the option to make a motion to approve the designs for each space. Okay, so this project is part of a larger agreement that BAS has made with APS for a pilot program of 10 utility cabinets to be enhanced with artist designed vinyl wraps. This first one here by Joe Rohrabacher is at Sinagua Middle School. She was a BAA grant recipient for this vinyl project. And there was a second BAA grant recipient who also installed their vinyl at the APS cabinet at the Texas Roadhouse. So the call to artists was an informal request for proposals and offered $2,000 for winning designs in any media so long as the design could be converted into a high resolution digital file required for printing by our vinyl vendor. Applicants could submit up to 2 proposals, 1 for each location or 2 designs for 1 location. They were also required to include a statement of interest with their background and inspirations and acknowledging that they would be able to submit acceptable digital files of the final imagery. In advance of the deadline for these calls, I conducted a pre-application meeting to explain the application process, what materials were needed from each applicant, and how each proposal would be graded. This meeting had more than 20 people in attendance and was very helpful to the artists that had questions about these procedures. So each utility cabinet had its own selection panel with 5 panelists each. Panels included community members, staff from nearby businesses, artists, and BPAC commissioners. Applicants were judged with a score out of 100 points. Up to 50 points were awarded for originality, visual and aesthetic quality, and artistic merit of the proposal, including the ability of the design to be successfully translated into large format. And another 50 points were available for how well the proposal complemented the specific site location, including how well the proposal improves that specific physical environment. The top scores are being recommended to BPAC for their approval. With BPAC's approval, we will then send the designs to APS for their final approval. We expect to begin the installation of these vinyl wraps this summer. So this is our first cabinet near 4th Street on Route 66. It's near Chick-fil-A and across the street from Fat Olives and Inspector's Auto. We received 20 applications for this site. That's great. Yeah. The selection panel consisted of Commissioner Travelby, Stephanie Washington, who's a community member and former BAA grant recipient, Sonia Lundenhall, an artist and community member, Jesse McCoy from Inspector's Auto, and Martin Ince, who is a multimodal transportation planner for the city of Flagstaff. So this is our highest scoring design coming to us from Jury Judge. You may find this design familiar as this artist proposal came in close second for a different call to artists for utility cabinets. But I'm just going to slowly cycle through these images so you get a chance to look at them. Commissioner Trackleby, you were on our panel for this location. Do you have anything to say about the discussions around this?
I think it just really spoke to a lot of people. I think a big concern was some of the designs was that they were going to blend into the background because a lot of them had the similar landscape colors to where the site is. People really liked the inclusion of the different nature elements, and in particular, one thing I thought was really cool is that she included what appears to be a Rocky Mountain iris, which is an endangered species in this area. And I thought that was really neat to tie it directly to our location.
I think there was a lot of discussion that this had big elements for the drive-by and small elements for the walk-by because it is next to a footpath path. It is.
Okay, and our second highest scoring artist for this location was Chelsea B. Goody. She's another artist who has submitted artwork previously and scored highly. So because of this, we want to invite Chelsea to apply for a BIA grant to provide a design for another APS utility cabinet location. So you may see her name in the future in our fall BIA grant cycle. Okay, the next location, Route 66 near Postal Boulevard, near the post office and IHOP. We received 18.
Commissioner McGrath has a question.
Oh,
It's actually a comment. Danielle Fouché, who's the second place person here, is my wife. So just wanted to share that with folks. No trouble with it. I talked to Carl, I'm not gonna vote. I would vote for the first place one anyway, but just wanted folks to know that, that the names aren't the same, but, I have a connection here.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes, so we had 18 applications for this site. Panel members for this location were Commissioner Rulon, Annalisa Hansen, City of Flagstaff staff, Krista Curhito, City of Flagstaff staff, Lisa Kissinger from the Americana Hotel, and Jamie Hassapis, a community member. So this is our top scorer for this location, Jessica Miller. Jessica is an emerging artist and has lived in Flagstaff for 12 years. So I'll continue to cycle through these images, but Commissioner Rulon, did you want to say anything about the discussions had?
Yeah, and I will say the top two choices were very close. They were both excellent submissions. They had a great sense of place. I mean, this one is clearly tied to Route 66, the other one to the post office. And this one also, one of the panels is tied to the post office because the prairie dogs have their mailboxes outside their homes. We really liked the sense of playfulness in this one. I heard some chuckling as we were going through the images. Some bold images that work well for the drive-by viewers, the same considerations as for the other one, but also some little details that you can see, like each one of them has a unique facial expression. Yeah, both of the top two choices were really well received by the whole panel, and I'm looking forward to seeing that ugly box that I drive past almost every day to look like a piece of art.
And Vice Chair Cruz said, very unique. We've not seen something like this before.
Yeah, it definitely stood out among all of the submissions. I think the artist described it as having a bit of a Looney Tunes quality to it.
Actually, the side with just the mailboxes and the implied prairie dogs might be my favorite side.
Yeah.
So, but they're all really great.
Yeah, and each panel is so unique.
Thank you for sharing that. So second place was Danielle Fouché. And this is the design she submitted to us. Again, BAS would like to reach out to this artist for them to apply for a BIA grant to design a different utility cabinet in our fall cycle.
Those are gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so do you have any questions for me or BPAC commissioners? And would you like to see another slide? One of the slides again.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else? So let's start with the first one. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve jury judge's proposal for the Route 66 4th Street location? As a reminder, that's the one with the blue flag iris.
So,
And second, may I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, that one is approved.
Is Commissioner McGrath abstaining?
No.
Or the second one, sorry.
He's abstaining from the second one. Commissioner McGrath, did you want to weigh in on this one? And Commissioner Cruz, did we get your votes?
Yes, I vote for this one. Yeah.
I vote aye. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, welcome.
Great, thank you.
And on the second one, would anybody like to make a motion to approve Jessica Miller's proposal for Route 66 Postal Boulevard?
I'll motion.
And a second?
Great. Any discussion on that one? Good. Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And anyone against? And Commissioner McGrath is abstaining from this one. So I believe that motion carries. Okay. Thank you. And item 3, the Spruce Watch, which project
Rolling tonight.
that project has been rolling along.
Yeah, it actually is. So the Spruce Wash Wedge 3D art project, considering a motion to approve the selection panel recommendation of artist Haddad Drugan LLC, Laura Haddad and Tom Drugan. Hey, now everybody gets to,
I think it was upside down.
am I doing it upside down again?
Try pointing it at the computer.
What?
There you go.
Okay, great. I had it upside down. I was trying to go backwards when they were in the
It's a
beginning.
common issue.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going over the project overview, we're going over the scoring criteria, the selection panel, and then we're gonna look at their past work. So, first of all, the location, this is that Weston Cedar on the north west corner. And it's part of that larger flood control project, but this is where they're digging out that deep basin. They call it the wedge because the parcel is actually a web shape, but the project shape is kind of like an ear. I think I called it, that before, because there's some sloping sidewalks, the outer rim of the ear. And anyway, but we're focusing on this project, at least for the 3D art part on the lobe. So it's going to be the earring on the project. So, and here it is looking straight on, is a bit of a promontory. We already have an on-call landscape architect on board. It's a WLB, and they're going to be doing some engineering. We're pushing back this retaining wall to allow a little bit more room for people to gather. We can't make it fully ADA accessible, but we can create some more room because this is the place where school kids go, on West a lot. So we're going to try to create some room there, get in a nicer looking retaining wall, and remove that invasive brush and elm at a minimum. We had a selection panel meeting, and some artists asked, could we remove more trees? I said this community was very sensitive to the trees that had to be removed for the basin. So while we could consider it, we also have to consider community input in that process. So no, not a no, a maybe, and let's consult the community on that. But they will be working hand in hand with landscape architect on the placement, and any supporting, landscaping that they need. So this will have 2 contracts. First one is design not to exceed 25,000. Fabrication and installation advertised not to exceed 175. Given the uncertainty right now around materials, that may increase with the cost of materials. Just giving you a heads up. So, we put out a solicitation for qualifications, not for proposals. Actually, for public art projects, it's very typical to put out a solicitation for qualifications, and you get chosen on your past work and your past experience. But we, told them what we wanted. We wanted them to create something, a site-specific icon. They have to contextualize it within that promontory. They have to be able to gauge the community. They have to, do something that's really durable. And they have to, work within the prescribed budgets, the city process, and with the landscape architect. We had more scoring criteria that goes into the utility cabinets. We had 25 points though for that kind of same visual aesthetic quality, artistic merit. I kind of talked through some, a few examples with the selection panel. Then, again, that site specificity. How does it improve the physical environment? How does it reflect the community? If around I talked about this piece by Don Lipsky as an example, which is at a children's cancer hospital and how this related to that site. Then also, again, really successfully interacting with the community because, before they even design, they're going to have a community meeting and possibly a focus group meeting to let the community tell them about themselves, because that's a really important part. Some public art projects have a lot more community input than others, some like this one, which is if birds went to the library, what would they read? The community actually submitted submissions of what the books were and what pages they would be to, and it was a lot of fun. Then, really, they do have to work within that design team on public art projects. They had to show some experience with that. So this was probably a harder project for somebody who is trying to do their first, public art project, to score enough points. And then, of course, those materials. Yes, you can be a paper art cut artist, but you also have to be able to translate into steel if you are. You have to show us that. All right, so as you know, we have really imbued best practices in public art as part of our process, and I think we've really come a great way. And one of the things that we do is we put those community stakeholders on our selection panels so that the public is always in public art at every stage. There we go. So our selection panels were, we had, of course, two BPAC members. We had Commissioner Roulant and Commissioner McGrath. And then we did have the landscape architect participate. We had an artist bring in some expertise. And then we had some city people, but they also were residents or connected. We had Sam Wiley from sustainability, and they're very involved with Spruce Wash Bridge overall. Crystal Warden Grant, she's, part of Parks and Rec, and she's also a Sunnyside resident. And then Stu Boris, who works at the board member commissioner at the Assistance League, where we actually did the Joel Geis, Be Generous mural. And so it literally just not even a quarter of a block away from this site. All right, so they recommended Laura Haddad and Tom Drugan as a top scorer. And I would say they had a significant score. And I know we can look to our commissioners for that. So I'm just going to go over a few of their past work, some of you've seen before. There we go. So from Scottsdale, the Equine Gargoyles of Watermark, a project that I happen to project manage down there for them. One of my favorites. This is in Denver, Colorado. It's at an animal shelter, and that dog is made up of dog tags. And I would say those two really were ones that the selection panel talked about a lot. And then any other ones that are more stainless steel and abstract, what was commented on a little bit was about the movement that was in all of them. And then this one also garnered a lot of comments from the selection panel. And I'm going to let and this is a very recently installed one at a skate park in Phoenix. It was installed last summer, I think. And this was, I think, one of their very first projects that they ever did. And I think it's, is it on Santa Monica Boulevard? I can't remember. A very, very early project of this, but still kind of a favorite. All right. So here's some of the comments. They found them to be original, creative, fun, very high quality You know, I think that they liked that all their pieces were very different from each other and seemed very like chosen for that location and the existing conditions that were there. The collaborative mindset that they showed in the written materials was talked about, you know, so obviously the extensive experience they have working on public art projects was a huge thing. But I'm going to maybe ask the commissioners, sorry, who are present to add their comments and what they heard from the selection panel.
I can say, one thing that I really had at the top of my mind was the proximity to the school. And I wanted something that felt playful and fun. And it was the dog made out of dog tags that really sold me on this one. That just, it shows a sense of humor. And I really loved that one. And again, the real variety in materials, in forms, in locales. And they had some of the most extensive experience with public art of any of the people who submitted.
I agree with everything that Mike said. I'll say what I really enjoyed about their proposal was the variety of work and variety of styles. We got a bunch that were really quality work from other proposals, but I think that the opportunity for the community to help shape the piece would have been much more limited because folks came in with a very distinct style, and it's like, oh, you know, you can have whatever you want as long as it fits in this little box. Where I think their background, they're obviously pros, and their background shows the ability to be flexible. And I think that's what was most important to me there. And they were far and away, I think, the top choice. Like, they were just an outstanding proposal, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do.
I don't even remember who was second place. That's how far above they were.
Question on
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with this process being a little bit new to BPAC. So is it, you look at the existing projects they've already done and that's how you make a decision and then they propose the art for the space? Okay.
Yes, so, and they don't propose the art until they've met with the community.
Okay.
So one of the reasons you do qualifications is so that the community input can be part of the, you know, their ultimate proposal. We also will ask them for more than one proposal. And then we also have the right to reject some, you know, their proposal. That's usually how we work the contract. And we do that, you know, the utility cabinets, we can kind of skip that step. But with a bigger public art project, you really shouldn't skip that step and go straight to proposals.
Okay.
Because you want that community input.
And a lot of time they bring a certain expertise and understanding about how to create something that's gonna have, you know, it'll be lasting, it'll be easy to install, it'll be all these other things. So it's hard to propose something that's unique to the community that also has those things where this basically enables a much more collaborative process for everybody who wants to take advantage of the expertise of the design team.
So that is something though that you have to ask the selection panel, because they're looking at past work. And you have, that's why the criteria says, is that a good project for the location in which it was cited? Not that you want that project here
Yeah.
in Flagstaff. I mean, maybe like the dog.
The dog
unit,
deck,
but yeah.
Everyone likes a dog.
Horses wouldn't work because they have the water.
Yes, but they
But-
work as a flood control, I mean,
Yeah.
flood control space on the Indian Bend Wash. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they're
Yeah.
for, is to be gargoyles.
And I'll add that in the written materials that everyone submitted, all of the pictures that they submitted, they said where the work was, who commissioned it, and what the materials were, the budget. So we can see that, you know, they are able to work with a variety of different budgets, a variety of different materials. And they also did talk about their experience with collaborative processes like what we're going to be doing.
Nice.
So, and there was definitely a wide range of experience and quality in the submissions.
Yeah, I think we had a couple that had only worked with really huge budgets, and that was, yeah.
Yeah,
It was you know, kind of maybe beyond our scale.
Yeah.
And stuff, so yeah.
And a few who, you know, they each submitted up to 12 images, but there were some people who submitted 4 images of the same project, then 4 images of another project, which kind of showed us that they don't have as much experience. But this was 12 images of completely different things that
They're
really.
very experienced. I do have a question about just the long-term process on this, and it may be something else. Is there an opportunity for us within, now that, should we approve this, to ask them to also consider, but not design, the idea for some sort of continuity between Fourth and Market Roundabout and whatever happens at the wedge? Is there an opportunity to have that conversation, or does that have to stay? at
That would
the
have to be a
market?
separate solicitation.
Okay, so it would have to happen at the roundabout, basically.
Yeah.
And ask the roundabout artist to
Or-
consider a conversation with the art that's happening in the wedge.
Right,
Okay,
yes, because it will go in a second.
I'm really glad that you guys selected it, Durgan. I think that there's an opportunity there to really create a character, or like you said, something playful. I think there's really a place for something joyful and fun on the east side, and I'm really hoping that's the direction that the community can go. You know, it's like, if we're gonna do a Flagstaff animal, let's make sure the squirrels are in there with their giant silly ears. It's, I mean, it's an inherently funny animal, so. I think that's great. We just have to make a motion to approve, correct?
Yes.
To recommend?
Is it a this is a no, this is actually an approval for their design. When they have the proposal, which is
Yeah.
then above $100,000, then it will be a recommendation for council to approve
Okay.
that fabrication contract, but we're going straight for design from this contract.
So we're making a motion to approve the design contract.
Yes,
But we're not.
the artist team, yes.
Where?
No, just approve the artist team.
Selection.
Yes.
Well, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the selection of this artist team? On that team? And you have a second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone?
Aye.
Object? Okay, great. It's everybody, so all in favor. Thank you guys for your work on this.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
We certainly put our procurement officer through his paces on this one.
Okay. And then item G4, the FY 26 and 5-year plan budget.
Okay, so I sent you the latest budget that we received from the finance team in January. It's pretty much the same as what you saw before our January and February presentations. So basically what I said is I would just tell you what the changes will be, because they won't give us one until, you know, the carry forwards and everything are in. But I'll just tell you any changes that we made since those meetings. So first of all, when Dave presented to you in February, he presented what our asks were for operating expense increases. And he did that for the beautification fund, and he did that for the arts and science fund. Every single one of these was approved by the finance committee. But now that is only again a recommendation for council, and we are only recommending to council this budget. So those increases will go into this budget. They're not reflected in the paperwork that you have. But there is no change from what we presented in February. And in January, I presented on the capital projects. And I had told you that we were going to ask for these additions. And so these additions definitely have been added as far as the finance budget approval is concerned, but again, council. gets the final word, but I did present to council, all of the capital projects, and they seem to be delighted, and I got no questions and no discussion. So not anticipating any issues, whatsoever. I will say that the Habitat for Humanity and Timber Sky, even though I asked for that to be in the FY26 budget, it does not look like that project can actually go for FY26. The indication from legal is that the land actually has to go back to the public trust, and that won't happen until after they build the homes. And so even though I asked to be put up from FY28 to FY26, I've now put the request to put it back into FY28. I'm not really sure if finance can do that at this late date. So you might see that one land either in FY26 or FY28. The other thing is we actually have to make sure that there's no HOA restrictions on community access because it has to be open into the entire community. I will say this has sparked, though, a bigger discussion about how to allow grants, perhaps, for any low-income housing development to have improved landscaping, just, streetscaping. And so it started the conversation. We will do our best to help that keep steam because that was one thing that came up. Why this one and not the other ones? Why is this one special? And that was a specialty. It was a great question, and it was discussed that no, we need grants, and maybe it's between that we fund future grants, for this, and anybody who's doing housing apply, and we would get that approved. So I like that discussion, even though I was very sad about this delay. So, yeah, Dave, did you want to add anything to that from those discussions? You look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, poker's not my game. I think one of the things I wanted to say is that it's actually really fun to go to the capital projects retreat, in part because Jana's projects are very well received. The commission's projects are very well received, and so it's where at one point in my time in this role, that was a fairly stressful conversation. Now it's mostly a feel-good conversation where they get to tell us how great everything that comes forward is. So kudos to the commission and to Jana and her team.
You did a great job, by the way. I watched it online. Yeah, and I was a little inaccurate. There was one commissioner who had comments, and that was Commissioner Garcia, and it was actually, a mild question, and it was actually, went very smooth. In fact, you could kind of see after some of the other presentations, like they kind of just all sat back and relaxed. Like we're not going to have any issues here. So.
Good commission.
I know, well, our projects are well funded, so they don't have to make big decisions about our funding. So
The last thing I'll mention is that while Jen is completely accurate, that these still need to go to council because they are restricted funds. It's not like they could be, and I think you guys all know this, but just it's not like somebody could say, we really need to fund fire, and so we're going to cancel something here. They would have to have a specific thing they want to do or really disagree with the project, and we didn't get any indication that that's going to be the case.
And then there's the carry forwards. That's going to be different. So obviously we didn't finish projects that we started. And so some of the amounts are going to be different in some of these major projects listed because we didn't, Spruce Falls Pledge. Well, I spent some money, on with capital projects management. I might make a payment to the landscape architect, but probably won't make any payment to the artist till FY27. So, we have to make this judgment call about how much we're going to spend in the last 2 months here and stuff. So you'll see those amounts change because of that. So whatever I have carried forward is, what's going to be the budget plus any new money I had already added in FY26. So those numbers, when it's finally printed out in June, don't exactly match. I have changed nothing as far as total amounts. So everything kind of really is as we said in January and February.
Like we planned it that way.
Yes, we try. That's our goal. So I didn't write a motion for this, so you have to think of it on your own. Except for in the agenda, it's written. I didn't make a slide for you.
I do have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I noticed that in the budget for 25-26, the expected BBB tax rate is going to be about the same as the previous 2 years, but given that we rely a lot on international tourism and we've seen what has happened, is there accounting for that or any wiggle room in the budget for a really bad tourism year?
So we're having, as you can probably imagine, fairly extensive conversations about what some of these impacts could be. At the moment, we're proceeding. We have one of the things that makes these shocks a little less of a problem is that we do already have in place a conservative look at our funds. Finance team built in recession and also takes a very conservative look on those estimates. So in general, even when we've seen things slow, it's still worked within the estimates that they've provided. If there is a major shock, we have a series of steps in place that's called a recession plan. And so we are going to advance with the understanding that we're taking a conservative look, but can't really, I don't think we can really truly anticipate the impacts of what's happening on that national level. We've talked about various potential scenarios that could come out of it, everything from international travel declining rapidly to domestic travel actually becoming more of a focus here, where folks who would have flown out of the country are now looking for their trip to Flagstaff. So it's something that we're having a lot of conversations about. We do rely on our finance team to make sure that we have a fund balance that is conservative and protected. And so we're moving forward with that knowledge. Is that a question? Yeah, it's certainly something that comes up.
Good question. And it's not just the considerations about the tourism source of the funding, but also how much of the funding do you have to spend on materials?
Yeah.
Because that's another place where you can potentially run into some interesting things. And the best example we have right now is COVID, which is a completely different scenario.
Yeah.
And, but people who do a lot of, buying ahead of time, a lot of procurement of goods are certainly considering, okay, well, what does this really mean in terms of materials?
But we're having those same conversations, what happens when tariffs are applied and your contract is unclear or, materials go up. It's certainly a time where we're spending a fair amount of energy thinking through potential scenarios and how to implement around them.
I think that what most likely might happen, Nicholas, especially with our projects, is, we might have to stagger. We might have to put more money into projects, slow couple down until we get to the next fiscal year where we can then ask, for money again. And, we're not in a issue where our fund is short of money. So, beautification. So even if it does go down a lot, we'll be okay. So if we would just delay the start of projects. We want to fund the projects that are going forward, so that they reach their potential and taking into account the costs.
Yeah, and the fact that the beginning fund balance is more than 3 times the expected revenue certainly does provide some cushion.
Great. So. I would like to make a motion to recommend to council for approval the FY26 and 5-year plan budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Hi.
Mr. Cruz?
They both said.
Oh, they both said at the same time. Okay, great. Thank you. And anyone against? Great. Motion carries. Now we're moving on to item H3, the big slideshow of the day. The BIA grant applicants.
Yeah, we don't actually have a slideshow for
Oh,
this.
so no slideshow. Okay, well, the big conversation.
Yes, yes. So we got 16 BIA grant applicants for this cycle. So I hope you all had some time to look at those. And this is our time to discuss those and collect some questions that you might have for the applicants that I can then send off to them for they're invited to present their project.
Will you click through the PDF at least as we're going through it, just to remind us which one we're on, because I did not memorize the names.
So they're in the agenda.
Yeah, they are, but I mean the names as associated with the visuals, just to remind me. They've been through it a few times, but.
If you want me to pull that up.
It's actually already up.
Oh, okay.
And you can click through if you'd like, or I can just follow
Yes,
along as
thank
we
you.
speak, whichever one is.
Okay. So yeah, our first one, Amanda Black, Artemis Tesora, and I believe Commissioner Travelby, we have to ask you to leave for this conversation.
Oh, okay. I talked with Jana, she said.
Oh, no?
No. I think it's because it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
But she can't ask any questions.
Okay,
Okay.
just full disclosure, the organization applying for this one is Culture Connection, of which I am the executive director. The person who did this grant application submitted it as our board president.
Thank you for that.
Anybody have any questions or comments that they want to see answered for the presentation?
I didn't, I thought it was very thorough.
I'm not looking at my phone. I'm looking at the PDF up close because my eyes are stupid.
Okay, well, no questions. We'll move on to Sky Black, who is proposing a mural with Joe Soren at the convenience store there between LaRue and San Francisco. Letters of permission. This is what's currently there. You can see that it's kind of tearing. And he's provided some examples of recent work. Questions on this one? Great. Moving along then. Alice Christie from Tinkertopia. They're looking to create a new community garden at their new location. Off Cedar, outlined all their expenses, provided lots of images that unfortunately are sightless.
I need to look at the community card ones really closely, just because I've been involved with some of those programs and I didn't have any questions. They were quite thorough.
Yeah, I mean, they went from start to finish.
And they've already got
Use cases pretty
examples of
clear.
it, yeah. But
Yes, it was thorough.
Yes.
very, yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
I expect nothing less from Dr. Alice Christie.
Yes.
They're also putting in a lot of their own money.
Yes.
They are, yeah.
That's more images than we got. Watch.
Going. Okay. It is, it's great.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have the Downtown Business Alliance. They are looking to put a mural in the alley by, which is the building of Brightside Books. They do not have an artist selected yet. They wanted to get their funding first and then do a call to artists.
I did actually have a question about this, and it's more just a request for their presentation, if they could speak a little bit to the need on this one.
They had a little bit about the alley. I actually have not been back behind there.
That is exactly
So-
why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an alley I've ever traversed.
But the picture made me think, yes, I can
Yes.
really have the visuals. So yeah, I could talk more about that.
You
That'd
guys
be
are-
helpful.
A part of the conversations that we've had in the past about alley activation, there's a really interesting area back behind there that we thought about. If we could make that cool, then it'd be great to guide people down the alley.
Yeah.
But we haven't quite got there yet, which doesn't mean we shouldn't do cool
Yeah,
things in the alley.
that would be.
Yeah, I know.
But that is, it's a really interesting space to go back into.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Neat.
That doesn't necessarily relate to their application, but I.
Well, but no, but I can imagine, yeah, and if they could just put a little bit more in there about that, yeah.
Gotta start somewhere.
Right.
Okay, and then Downtown Flagstaff Foundation, they would like to call to artists for vinyl wraps of the traffic signal cabinets that are on Aspen in that same downtown drag.
These are very different from
Oh, they're the little ones that go back.
They're the little ones that hang on the post, the little green ones. So they're of a different size and
Now, were those included in our downtown green project?
yeah, we just painted them.
Yeah, we just painted them, right?
Yeah. Do they need any coordination? Is that something that should be part of their application? Like,
They received approval from the transportation motor vehicle.
I remember, yeah, okay.
Folks.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Any questions or comments for them to address?
Questions, no comments? Next, we have Melissa Ekstrom from the Willow Bend Center. They have a plan for some patio furniture and a activity cart, an art cart. And supplied a lot of information here.
We'll note that Commissioner Cruz has left the meeting. He did give an indication that he would be leaving at 5:30 and he hopped off exactly at 5:30.
Precision.
I don't know if this is. I might need guidance to make sure this is like, if I'm getting ahead of when we get to approvals, but or versus this discussion item that I did notice. Some of their furniture, I just wanted to see if they could review some of like the accessibility and inclusivity on it. I think, the Adirondack chairs in particular are really great for people with mobility issues and transferring, and so.
You can
just
ask them
consider
to-
that.
We can ask them to address inclusivity issues on the choices.
Perfect, yeah, that's great.
I would not have.
Do they have regular staff at Willow Bend? That's there, like throughout the week, they put the card out and make sure nothing gets stolen.
That's a good question.
I'm not sure, yeah, that'd be nice to hear from them. An application.
I believe it's staff. I don't know if it's, a straight 40 hours or whatever. I know that. I believe there's staffing at some points.
It's busy on the weekends.
You can get-
We can ask them to address that.
Or if you're gonna have a volunteer, I know we have a lot of volunteers to stuff.
The questions for Willow Bend? Next, we have Crystal Estrada, who is proposing planting some native perennials at the Sego Lily Trailhead.
hoping, she said that she'd be willing to water, and I was hoping that she would say more about a schedule for installation, because seeding installation, although it's awesome, and I hope that this fares well, I think it's a great idea, but the seed doesn't really take readily, and the time of year is important, so just some commitment from them about when they're gonna do it, and then how they're gonna water, because I don't know if there's water hookup there, so I just, it'd be nice to know.
Hand watering, yeah, I don't. there's no
Yeah, so
control
like
way.
how do you get it? Yeah. 'Cause normally, like with hand watering, there's like a hose bib or something.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if they could work through that a little bit, just so they don't run into issues.
In order for your seeds to go, you either have to be in a full monsoon or you have to water it every day.
Yeah.
Good on that one?
Good. Kathy Ferretta is representing Anderson's Tire. They want a community mural there. Elected Dwayne Kayawina as an artist. Of Dwayne's previous work. Questions on this one? It's pretty straightforward. Then we have Danielle Boucher. And she is proposing painting concrete basketball courts at the Smoke Rise neighborhood park.
Really excited to see an art project out in Smoke Rise. I'm gonna love this.
We have support of pros. Any questions on that one? We have Diana Henry. She is looking to erect a memorial artwork, like a mini mural for Jack Welch at the Picture Canyon Bridge. And with Dwayne Kayawina doing the artwork. And to be clear, she's just asking, this grant is for the artwork, not for the commemorative panel. Or these other elements that are going to be added here. Wrap design. Questions on this one?
I have some concerns about the materials and placement for this one, because it's on a bridge over water. It's one of the very few places in Flagstaff that actually has humidity. So I would like to hear a little bit about placement in that sort of low creek bottom zone and some of the wear and tear resistance that it may need. Like, I don't know, maybe I missed it. Is it on a plywood panel? Is it?
She said metal.
Did they say it was a metal panel? I just want to hear a little bit about it. And then I'd like to talk.
Oh, plywood.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm concerned about.
Metal
The metal sheet.
Yeah, metal piece affixed to the plywood with an adhesive sealant. Artist will paint his artwork on the metal sheet.
I have some concerns about the resilience of that. We have art in a non-humidity enhanced area, just on Puente de Hojo Elementary. Those are some real treasures there from some local painters, and they're not faring well. They're only exposed to east side sun. They don't have a humidity issue to deal with, and the plywood is flaking and peeling. So I have some concerns about longevity, so I'd just like to. I don't know if it's on a metal panel, it's a little different, but there's a replaceability there. But also just, kids climbing on it, feet on the railings, because kids climb that bridge pretty much all day, every day. So, some of those things.
Yeah, I wonder if they'd consider putting it adjacent, because I think the bridge will eventually need repair and it'd be kind of nice for them to have being separate.
So just some thought process around that placement, some clarification would be nice.
Plywood will be painted to match bridge color. A metal piece will be affixed to plywood with an adhesive sealant. The artist will then paint his artwork on the metal sheet.
Right. But being on
Yeah.
plywood.
Yeah, but the metal sheet will actually be what the artwork is, and then painted with the kind of paint used for road signs. So,
I just want to hear a little bit about
Yeah.
all the considerations.
yeah,
It feels like a vulnerable place. To me.
Lots of community support.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really neat to see.
Tons.
Super cool.
Jack Welch was a beloved character. And that's the other thing is I picture if there is a longevity issue with a park or with the art, that because he is such a beloved character, there might be a lot of support for consistent upkeep.
I could suggest vinyl to her.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's best. I just think that that's a consideration that we want to make.
Let them address it.
Yeah.
In their presentation.
Yeah.
We have Jason Jones. He's doing a for Freedom Garden in the south side. Little mural to go along with it. Greenhouses. So he is planning on applying for a sustainability grant as well. But that doesn't happen until September. So it's just now asking for the BIA portion.
Two main things, questions or requests for this one. One is if they could say a little bit more about the nonprofit that is going to be operating the garden. And then if they could do a little bit more, I think we've had a few of these in the past where it's a public project on private property, and they did quite a bit to show how that would work, but I think a bit more about how to make it access clear to people that are wanting to use it. I didn't see that kind of explicitly written out.
I agree. Anytime you start to get into greenhouses and things like that, you have to offer public access to those greenhouses, or it is not a public project. Is that okay?
We have Claire Magnuson, who is also doing a garden at the Grand Canyon Youth. Going to be on the north side of their building. Strip of land here.
Can I remember that they, for the other side of the building, they had a previous BIA grant. It was very successful.
I was gonna say they've done a good job in the past. I like these returning grantees, like Willow Bend, and these guys where they've learned that this is a potential resource for their neighborhood, and that they're coming back.
Yeah, I agree. Any questions on this one?
We have Christy Rockus, who is proposing a mural downtown as well.
I was just curious who the portrait was. If they, if that's a particular person. Thing. It's so focused on the face that, I would just be curious to know.
Would be good.
Yeah, sure, yeah, it's them.
Next one is from Joe Rohrbacher. She's the artist that painted the ravens, the vinyl wrap for the ravens on the Sinagua APS cabinet. She's proposing this mural originally at the county sheriff's office. We've been informed that they're going to be remodeling that space, and so that's not a viable wall for her to paint on. So we're still, I'm working with the artist to determine a location for this mural. So that's still TBD.
Is the intent to find a location in time for this grant cycle?
I believe so.
It has to be, she has to have permissions by the time of the meeting.
Jason Sabori, he is proposing public art walls at the handball courts at Thorpe Park. Some examples of what he envisions takes place there.
This is more about the process on how they're going to determine what goes there. And Works is all on board.
Yeah, I was impressed with their buy-in, actually. That was one thing I knew about this application.
Actually, we were doing something similar some years ago, and I think that helped a lot to get our heads wrapped around it, and then that ended up not going through, not because it was his issue, but otherwise, and yeah, I was pleased to see how quickly.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit more insurance requirements for this one because of it being on, Parks property, that we learned from the other one. However, this is not, doesn't have the graffiti wall issues, perhaps the same way that other project did. But it is still kind of the same process. They're curating the space.
That was the one part, and
I'm remembering that.
I'm not sure if I understood. I couldn't, was this what, was the intention for this to be a rotation or whatever selected to be permanent? That's what I wasn't sure.
It's an open invitation to artists to use that space to paint. So I think the inaugural display is going to be an invited artist and curated, but after that point, it's going to be anybody can come and decorate the space.
Okay, and so, okay, and then we just have to work out like timing because they're used for recreation too. Right, that's,
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand is that they're underutilized, that people
Okay.
don't really use them that often.
okay,
But that would definitely be something in the contract that we would need to clarify that, right of way goes to people playing in the courts rather than some
Or
that
there has to be posting
and
and
they
ahead
had
of time
signage.
notice that it would be closed. But maybe they could clarify about how the inaugural artwork and the subsequent artwork is gonna play out.
linear.
I'm curious, can you like sign up for a wall, or do you have to do the whole thing, or?
Or if you show up and paint over something.
Sort of paint over? Yeah.
That's
That
I believe that he doesn't want it to be policed. So it truly is an open space for anyone
And has
to
he,
make a mark.
has he looked into other programs that are similar, like,
He's actually done one in Los Angeles.
it's not the Venice one, is it?
No, it's the very first thing in his application.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry. There were a lot.
I know,
Yeah.
believe me.
I read it a couple times. I think I probably missed details in every one of them a little bit, so.
He did mention the Venice one.
The Santee Public Art Gallery is something that he's,
Because the Venice one in particular is a well community managed wall that works exactly like what you're discussing. I mean, one thing to point out, it is absolutely in the graffiti style. 100%. And if that is gonna be a thing that people object to, I don't know. I mean, like, is that gonna be allowed?
No. I was gonna say, we approved a graffiti wall project before, so.
Okay,
I
as long as
think
it's
that went
allowed.
up through council too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's not,
okay.
I will say the idea that it would be not policed at all concerns me, because I think there was conversation around like certain vulgarities or, profanity would need to come off quickly. So maybe policing is not the right word, but I'm sure there's.
Well, he doesn't have a plan for correcting anyone's marks.
What did you discuss with the Parks Commission?
I thought pros had said they needed that. I might have misunderstood.
I don't remember going into a lot of detail with that, at the pros meeting. We did send him that draft contract from the graffiti wall that had been done in the past. I shared that with him. So he would be aware of what sort of things are going to be expected of him. And then he sent back an edited document, with some of those things changed around to better fit his vision.
Okay, so we probably have to have I think we'll need to have some clarification on that. That's right. I thank you for the reminder, Corey. Because I think some of those things that are in there will be required and you can't put it back on the city. So we'll have to see if he truly wants to go forward.
You could also inquire with Coconino County Parks and Rec. They have an art wall at Elizabeth, this year Archuleta County Park. I'm not sure how that runs.
Yeah.
But they haven't had a graffiti issue. Again, I don't know how they manage that.
And you
But
just
the
specifically,
county actually then they get applications and they vet them. But
Okay,
it's the
okay.
county that does it.
Okay.
And so a BIA grant is supposed to be run by the grantee, not expect that kind of work from the city.
Yeah, so then I think it's important to note, he specifically says, I don't want to curate it in his letter.
And so we ask him to address it more thoroughly on, what he thinks he needs from the city and the contractor. We'll have to consider that. Yeah, you'll have to consider that when we want to go forward, because but the city will just say, no, we won't agree.
One of the other things, actually, it's funny that they selected the portrait of this woman. I'm just curious that if you've got an unmanaged art wall and someone, say, paints a beautiful memorial to someone, and then a day later, someone paints chicken jockey over it from the Minecraft movie. A recent artistic experience of mine. I just am kind of curious what the management on that, or like if there's going to be something posted that says art is what art is, and if you paint here, you need to do it with the understanding that tomorrow it could be replaced. And then it may be something that simple, but just that conversation.
Would you like to have a representative from Parks here?
Either that or we need to talk to them ahead of time.
And we need to talk to him ahead of time, but in case a question comes up that we don't think of.
No, that'd be great.
For the record, I like this idea.
Yes,
I just
yes.
am thinking through the complications and just wanting to make sure that if we fund it, it's not something that gets shut down.
That makes me think there needs to be some monumentation signage that explains it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see in that proposal.
At least until the culture develops.
And I believe in the previous one, where it was a graffiti wall, there was an agreement that things that were profane or, there was a certain area where it would have to be taken care of quickly. So I don't know if, I'll admit that while we all certainly appreciate freedom of speech, there are certain things that on city property would probably not be considered appropriate.
But curating is different than, policing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if there's criteria set down, and maybe there is included that it's only open for change and after a certain number of days or months or whatever, we'll have to see.
Okay, those are my questions. Other thoughts?
And then the last one, I think we're gonna have to wait until fall cycle to do his. I did follow up with some questions for Tyler Williams, who wants to do a mural at his neighbor's home. I asked for a permission letter and he hasn't been able to get that to us yet. He does have some good ideas about what he wants to put there. I think it's just getting his feet wet and we can expect a more robust application in the fall.
Awesome.
Yeah, that application left me with a lot of questions.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
This question is.
You have your neighbors, permission.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I appreciate this advice.
Work on.
Thank you.
Great. Alrighty, item H, I. Do we have any, or sorry, item I. Sorry, my eyes and my ones are all blending together. Request for future agenda items. A vote is needed for 2 commission members. Did anybody have any requests? Okay. And item J, time and date for the upcoming meeting, May 12th, 2025. Yep. And with that, you're adjourned.
And we'll probably send out a warning for obviously this one for the full agenda. We made it, but then we threw a lot of time with the actual presentations by 15 BIA applicants. I anticipate we might go over, but we will maybe extend that meeting and give the proper public notice. That's yeah, so that you guys can plan accordingly. And some of this is what comes from also like we skipped the March meeting, so we got backed up a little bit. But also whenever the grantees, obviously we have more grantees than ever. They raise the number of leads they have.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great job on the outreach. Thank you.